two, one. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you for joining today's webinar. You should see a Q&A box directly on your screen where you can submit questions for today's speakers. Later today, you'll be sent a link to the on-demand recording. And now I will hand it over to today's presenters.
Good day, everyone. Welcome to our latest webinar. This is the discussion about the latest and greatest and what's new in SevOne Data Insight over basically the last 3 or so releases. I'm Rob Fisher, product manager for Data Insight. I've been with the product since its very inception. So there's a lot of history of the features and et cetera that I have. And then with me for backup is Matt Sweet. He will be answering questions ad hoc. So as they come in, he'll answer some stuff, maybe add some commentary as well for stuff that I may need to expound on more. And additionally, Matt has been a product manager for quite a while, working on the product as well. So a lot of the features you'll see today have come from myself or Matt. So we'll be discussing a lot of his favorite features as well. So for the agenda today, we're going to talk about 7.0. 7.1 and 7.2 is the last 3 major releases that we've had. And then assuming that there's adequate time and good discussions, we'll leave a little time at the end for Q&A. So to start, I wanted to talk about the product management focuses and priorities over the last year or so. And so we kind of break it into 4 areas. So we want to address the technical debt to make a more stable and more secure and better product overall. We want to do more with the data. So one of the things is SevOne collects a lot of different data from a lot of different places, and we want to unlock the power and potential of that. So you'll see a lot of features today because this is specifically Matt and my focus area of doing more with the data that we're already collecting. And obviously, the other end of that is to do more with data types. So bring in new and different ways of collecting data. And then obviously creating growth avenues, not only for ourselves, but for our customers as well. So the more that we collect that gives you more avenues for growth, it's a win-win situation for both of us. So that's really what we're focusing on. And today we're really going to talk about most of the stuff under do more with the data. So to start, we're going to start with 7.0. So hopefully most of you here are familiar with 7.0 and the features there. We know some of our customers are slow to update, and potential customers are just interested in features in general. So we're going to start here and work our way up to current release. So to start, device managers. This will be the first feature we're going to talk about today, and one of the major features from IBM SevOne 7.0. So what is device manager? So device manager is a mechanism. It's a new UI page within the user interface that allows you to manage, look at all of the devices within your system. So the big one here is we've added some functionality for you to obviously view and manage those devices. So you're able to look and see those devices. The big difference between this and say our legacy device manager is that we have a mechanism to view devices for multiple clusters if you're in a multi-cluster environment. So here you can actually choose the data source that you're interested in. So if you have multiple clusters, you don't have to go to an individual cluster to manage the devices there. You can actually see them all and interact with them all through this UI. So the other addition is that we give you the ability to actually add devices through the UI. So if you wanted to, you could add an individual device or import multiple devices via CSV, like you could in our legacy UI, but do this all within DI. So this makes it a lot easier to manage multiple clusters because you can actually add and edit those devices straight within a single unified UI, as opposed to having to jump between clusters. So we started with, for this 7.0 version, with supporting SNMP, ICMP, and WNI plugins. But this is a first step where we'll be adding more plugins over time. But this gets us most of the use cases for most of our customers in terms of being able to manage devices. So this is really powerful as a way to say, hey, we're porting new functionality to the product and giving admins a lot of ways to manage devices, but then also actually allowing non-admin users to be able to see what devices they have access to. So this is really nice for being able to say, hey, what devices are where, what's in a device group, et cetera, and then being able to actually work off in workflows from that. So we have all the linking and behaviors, the workflow behaviors on this page as well. So this is really powerful, nice feature. The other major feature for 7.0 is instant graphs. So we'll talk about that. So instant graphs, for those who are unfamiliar with our legacy UI, instant graphs is basically an exploratory workflow within the UI. So today you can slice and dice data, but to do so, you really have to build or I should say previously, you'd have to build a report. So you'd have to build a top N or a PM and kind of design a workflow that works. And we do ship out of the box some exploratory type reports. But one of the big feedback items that we got from a lot of customers is, hey, if I have a problem, I have an issue that I'm looking at today, and I just want to go in and look at that particular issue. If I don't already have a workflow that is pre-built via a report in order to be able to see and explore that data, I have to basically start from scratch of building a report for that specific instance. And I might not care about that data at the end of the process. I might just be looking around at data. So instant graphs is a way to quickly query data using our very flexible resource selection. So we have the resource selection where you can jump straight from a device to an indicator type and really powerfully look for stuff very quickly. Well, instant graphs allows you to quickly chart all of that stuff, be able to see relationships between that data without the need for multiple mouse clicks. And then additionally, you don't have to actually worry about widgets or visualizations. It's all just sensible defaults for you to really quickly start looking at the data. So this is really powerful because as the slide says, you get to quickly look and keep going. So you can just quickly add resources, quickly remove resources, and you don't have to worry about it being a report that it's going to be saved or maintained somewhere. You can just quickly drill down and drill down and drill down. We also have the ability for you to slice and dice the data, which we'll see in a second, which is really powerful. And then more importantly, we'll talk about in a second that you actually have the ability to maintain what you're looking at and add it to a report if you so desire. So going into a little bit more detail, zoomed in a little bit, this is basically our Instant Graphs workspace. And so over here, we have our resource selection where you can quickly add stuff. And then the moment you add a resource, we quickly graph those resources for you. And so this is really great because it gives you a mechanism of, instead of having to add multiple widgets with multiple visualizations, we're kind of doing a lot of that work really quickly for you. So you don't actually have to worry about having to do all of that mental load. You just get to the results a lot faster. So you get the full querying capability of resource selection. So there's no limitation here. If you can graph it in a report, you can graph it here. It's just quicker. And then additionally, we also provide shorthands of how you might want to look at the data. So you can quickly switch between this split types, as we call them. So you can look at, hey, I want to break down and look at each individual indicator. So maybe I want to see a bunch of graphs of all the in octets in one graph and all the out octets in another in order to be able to quickly view and see analysis. But additionally, you can also say, hey, I want to split by device and say, hey, is one device or another showing an instance so I can see all of the octets in and out for particular devices or split it that way as an example. And then you can actually change the arrangement of what you're looking at to say, do I want to see a list of individual visualizations or do I want to see this grid type pattern? So you can actually see more correlation between what you're looking at. So additionally, as part of this functionality, we introduced Stash. And what Stash basically is a sort of a la carte experience. So it was introduced in 7.0 as part of Instant Graphs, but is also throughout the product and will continue to be built in the product. But what this is the ability to say, hey, I like this visualization with these resources in this way. And you can basically click a single button to send the visualization to your shopping cart or your stash. And then you can go over into a report and unstash that into a single report. So if you go through the process of diagnosing a problem within Instant Graphs, if you have an issue, you come in and you start building out that experience and you say, hey, I want to share this story with other users. You can quickly just say, let me stash 1, 2, or all the visualizations. And then you can go to report and basically unstash them, rearrange them however you would like to tell your story, save that as a report, and then share that report with others. So this is a really powerful experience where starting in Instant Graphs, but then also within reports themselves or in some of the other features that we'll see, you'll be able to basically click a button really quickly to stash what you're looking at and reuse it elsewhere, which is a really powerful feature that will continue to see adoption throughout the entire platform as we go. Additionally, in 7.0, we wanted to improve some of the widgets that we have. So we'll talk about those. One of the major improvements that we did was around topology. So we built all this functionality around our live map functionality in order to have alerting and metric behavior and all of these wonderful things. But topology basically is a very similar view to our live maps. So what we did to the topology widget is basically said we took all of these well-loved features from live maps and brought them over topology. So what this means is now in the topology widget as of 7.0, you have things like alert statuses for devices and objects. You have an advanced legend, so you can tell what you're looking at very quickly, including filtering. So it's difficult to show in a slide, but like you can interact with the legend down below. And if you click, say, critical, we'll filter everything but critical alerts. Or you can turn off the logical or physical connections by clicking the legend, which is really powerful. We also have advanced tooltip. So as you can see in the screenshot, by clicking on one of the nodes in the map, I actually get a lot more information, including metadata information as part of that. So we show you things like, hey, what's this location? Who's the owner? And then additionally, we allow you to link out to another report. So by clicking the device or object name, which is highlighted in blue as a hyperlink, you can actually follow a workflow out of the topology widget, which is really powerful. Additionally, you can tag any object or any node or link within the visualization and then filter them later. So when you build a topology, we build it obviously based on the technology, and that filtering is there. So you can say, hey, I just want to look at all my BGP connections and uncheck anything else, and we'll actually filter the visualization for you. And then we also build in functionality that allows you to highlight the focal device. So when you're looking at a complex topology with a lot of nodes, you can see which one is the focal device. And what's really powerful about this is because the topology widget works with our variable system, you can actually quickly build dynamic topologies by choosing from a variable a device and then quickly showing like, hey, I want to jump from a device in Chicago to see what's connected to choosing another device in New York and being able to see one or two hop peers in the same network with all of this information built in. So it allows you to build some really powerful visualizations as part of workflows because of all this dynamicness. So yeah, the topology widget is now extremely more powerful than it was. Same thing with the metadata widget. This is something that a lot of people were using in the product, but we realized that it had some limitations. So we wanted to have it be a little bit more feature rich. So some of the features here is it now responds to more variable types. So now you can throw a device, an object, a device group, or an object group, which is a really quick way to be able to say, hey, what's in this object group? You can see it there. We also added the ability to show device group metadata. So for those of you who are using device group metadata, you can actually see this in the metadata widget as well. And then we have a bunch of we have a unified look and feel. So it was using an older way of selecting resources, and we brought that up to be in line with the rest of the product, which is really powerful. And then added a bunch of dynamicness to it. So you can start with a device variable, and it'll list everything underneath the device, but then you could also then switch to a variable that was device group, and it would list the contents there, as well as being able to click on devices or objects or even metadata values within the widget for workflow linking. So you can come in and see a list of objects within your system filtered by a variable and then click, say like a sys location and actually drive off to another report. So all this allows you to see more content about your system, aka that all the metadata that you have in it, and as well as build workflows from that metadata. So we have a couple of use cases where we have customers that basically build out things like virtual things like sites or something that's not within our data model, and they can kind of mimic that with the power of metadata, and this allows them to really build those workflows. So moving on, we're going to talk about app centricity. So one of the major accomplishments of 7.0 is that we had spent many releases previously focusing on an app-centric way of viewing data within SevOne. So this is actually the culmination of actually 2 years of focus, and it brings out a really good story for those Flow customers who are looking at app centricity. So the first thing we want to talk about is we did actually build down the concept of app profiles and categories. And so this basically gives the ability to say, hey, I want to define what an app is within my network. And then I want to categorize if you have multiple apps. So maybe you're using a bunch of things for personal storage within your organization, that you can actually build out what each individual of those apps are in order to be able to see flows to and fro, but then also be able to categorize those under groups. So you can actually look at them as well. So we built that into a variable system so you can actually look at a bunch of different categories and the individual apps within them to be able to show visualizations looking at all your categories or filter to specific apps. And you'll see what I'm talking about in a minute when this all kind of comes together. So what this does is allows you to build really powerful app-centric workflows. So today, we're in 7.0, you can actually go into the product, and we have a couple of out-of-the-box workflows that allow you to do this. We can come in and say, hey, I want to see all the Slack traffic in my network, which is really great. And so you could choose Slack from the variable, which would then filter all of the visualizations by flow data that's being represented by Slack. And this is really powerful for you to say, I want to look at the data from an app-centric viewpoint and be able to go from there. And what's really great as part of 7.0 is we allowed you to say, hey, I have this flow data, and I want to be able to chain to performance metrics, or I want to be able to go from the app down to the actual like network resources that are servicing that app. So you can see a relationship between, hey, Slack seems to be running really, really slow. Is it because the firewall has an issue, or is it because a link between the firewalls or the user's computer and the firewall is slow? And you could be able to get that information from actually looking at the physical resources of the network as opposed to just the flow data themselves. So this is really powerful to be able to chain from flow to metric, whereas before you could only really chain from metric to flow. And then we did some really powerful stuff around automatically enriching flow data. So what we did is we worked with a third-party vendor in order to collect a bunch of information around like basically known boundaries. So for this, we actually enriched the country of origin. So throughout the product now, as you look at particular types of data in your system, we'll automatically tag like, hey, this data is coming from the United States, it's coming from Canada, it's coming from Mexico, et cetera, et cetera. And what we do is we actually give you little country flags to make it really quick as a user to determine, hey, I'm looking at this Sankey diagram, and we seem to be getting a lot of traffic from Russia. That's probably something that maybe I should be concerned about and go and investigate. So instead of having to look at IP addresses and then trying to figure out where those IP addresses exist in the world and doing that additional lookup, we're doing that for you. So you can just quickly see, hey, this is the country of origin. Very, very similarly, we're doing the same thing only around applications. So we're working with a large database from a third-party vendor that allows us to tag over 5,000 SaaS applications in order to tell you automatically, hey, what traffic is that? So this makes it really powerful that even though you can define your own applications within the system for your internal applications that you're using, private within your organization, we can also automatically tell you information about traffic that's leaving your network or coming back through a SaaS application. So if you're using Microsoft 365, if you're using Slack, if you're using Teams or whatever, we automatically tag that data as applications and then automatically categorize those things for you so you can quickly break down from an app-centric view of all of the traffic within your network. So you can quickly go through and say, I want to look at all the communication apps that are running. And because you have that categorization, you can then see a top end of saying, hey, Teams is getting more usage than Slack, which is getting more usage than X, Y, and Z. And you can see that very quickly and then interact with that bar chart to say, let me look at what each individual application is using, and then actually drive down and see performance behavior on top of that. So it really allows you to go from getting a service call of someone saying, Outlook seems to be slow, and being able to say, okay, let me look at this, go into SevOne, type in Outlook, and then start debugging that way, as opposed to having to have all of these resources memorized or in a lookup somewhere to say, hey, what does this mean? And having that expertise. We're tagging all of that automatically. So if you upgrade to 7.0 and you're a Flow customer, all of this stuff will automatically come for free. So yeah, we work with like 5,000 of very popular SaaS applications for those application logos, which is pretty cool. And so, as I said, we actually put in the logos themselves into the data. So here I am looking at a table view, and we're looking at those apps. And I can quickly, at a glance, not having to read the word Instagram, can just see the Instagram logo. And this is really powerful for visualizations and being able to quickly assess data. So we want you to spend less time digging through data and getting the insights faster. And this is one of the ways we're doing it, by giving you that higher fidelity of vision. So those are the major features of 7.0. 7.1 is the next release that we had out. So while we were talking about app centricity, I figured we could just continue that story. So it's what, like I said, it was a big initiative for us, and it's still ongoing somewhat. So this was where we got that flow to metric drill down, where we actually provided a lot of functionality for you to be able to say, hey, I'm looking at flow and it's broken down in a particular way. And I want to be able to say, look at these resources, but now I want to look at it from the physical infrastructure that's backing that application. So this is really powerful because you don't have to have that mental mapping between, what server is hosting what application. We can just do that linkage for you, and a report consumer or even a report creator can just quickly create a report that actually shows that relationship, and you can actually say, let me filter based on application, and being able to see, hey, what resources is peaking based on the physical infrastructure underneath. So allows you to have a continuing workflow going not just from metrics to flow as a workflow. Let me look at my physical infrastructure and see what is it, how is that impacting the application, but flipping that on its head, so you can start with the application and then go down to the physical infrastructure. As part of this, in 7.1, we released a lot of out-of-the-box reports around flow. So if you haven't gotten to 7.1 yet, we released a bunch of great workflows showing off all of this functionality, both for immediate value for users, but then also for report creators to kind of look and feel and say, hey, this seems pretty cool. And maybe take inspiration from that for building out your own workflows. So we shipped with a number of out-of-the-box flow reports. So those of you who are astute looking at that screen grab might have noticed that the report manager screenshot in there looked a little different. And that's because we spent a lot of time for 7.1 reorganizing our reports. So one of the things we did is we looked at our quick links, as we call it, which is the middle column there in the screenshot, that had a bunch of quick folders for you to navigate and look at stuff. And what we did is we improved the access, the quick link access options. We also improved some out-of-the-box content improvements, and then we added the ability for you to provide to your customers the ability to have global folders. And what this did is it turned the UI from what it looks like here into something more like this. And we'll break down each one of these features individually. So to start, we had quick links, and we basically went through and relooked at how they were being used, what was the most valuable of the quick links, and then what we thought we were missing. So we retooled everything in order to be easier to read with better iconography and stuff that was much more valuable. So rather than having a strong all templates, all reports, shared templates, shared reports, we just collapsed that into here's everything, here's your templates, here's what's shared with you, and it's the distinction between reports and templates are kind of those. It's still there, but it's kind of hidden around this abstraction because most users didn't care. So this was a great way in order to make it easier for you to find what you're looking for very quickly within your report manager, because as you add more and more reports, being able to find what you're looking for becomes more important. Additionally, as part of that, as we are shipping more out-of-the-box reports for use, we wanted to organize that content in a way that made more sense. So we actually built actual meaningful folder structure into the report manager. And so part of that was so that we could, as you see in the screenshot here, bundle up a bunch of our out-of-the-box reports, put them into a smart location so that you could, as a user, come through, say, hey, I need to know what's going on with my AWS environment. Okay, well, I know that's a public cloud, it's AWS, and I can go in and see a list of reports there and immediately get content. And so this does two things. One, it's let users know what's in the system in a more generalized way, but then also allows you to find stuff a lot faster. And as we add more content, rather than clogging up the report manager with more and more stuff, it's all organized into these folders to be found very quickly. But of course, immediately upon doing that, the first thing that anyone ever said was, well, I want to build my own folder structure. So we allowed you to do that. So in 7.1, we have the concept of a global folder. And so this allows an admin of the system to go through and say, hey, I'm going to build out my own folder structure. I'm going to put public reports in there so all the users of my system can see the stuff that's most relevant for them. And so this is really powerful because it allows admins to say, I want to curate an experience for my users so they can quickly find what they're looking for. They can still have their own personal structure under their personal folders, like they have been able to since forever. But an admin can also curate that experience, which makes it a lot easier, especially for new users or for new content, to be able to find stuff. So users quickly look at the global folder and say, hey, there's a new folder in here called capacity planning. I care about that, so let me go and look at it, which is really nice. So moving on, the next feature is device summary. So we did ship an out-of-the-box report called device summary, but it was kind of limited in what we wanted to be able to do because it had to be generalized for all devices, and all devices and different devices have different data that we care about. So we built a built-in, out-of-the-box, dynamic curated experience. So now, anywhere you are in the product, using our report linking, if you click on a device name, you will see the option to go to our device summary. And what this does is it basically breaks down all relevant information about a device in a single page. So this will show you metadata about the device. It will show you alerts about the device. It will go through and show you basically a breakdown of objects and small little graphs about the indicators of that object or that device. So you can quickly go and look at a device and see what's going on with the device, getting all sorts of information about the device. And then if you have global report links built for your system, you can actually navigate into, say, indicators or objects of that device for more dynamic workflows from there. So this basically gives you a quick view. At any point within the product, you can click and go to this very detailed view to say, hey, what's actually on this device? What's this device doing? What's relevant about this device? This is also built with that stash functionality in mind. So if you are scrolling through this dynamic view and you say, hey, something's fishy about this indicator, based on this little gauge or line chart, you can actually stash that and then go back to report and paste it in, and you'll be able to see really quickly build a report that way. So this gives you, again, that a la carte experience, which is really nice and powerful. Yeah, so this is really nice and is built into the product by default now as part of 7.1. So that moves us on to 7.2. So one of the major features of 7.2 is we started a process of a new look and feel for the product. And so what does that mean? So it's kind of it's a phased approach. So it's starting in 7.2. There'll be improvements to in 8.0 and beyond. And then we're sort of doing this for three reasons. One is alignment with IBM standards. So this gives us a more coherent experience with other IBM products. And so this helps anyone who happens to have more IBM products in their portfolio to be able to have a consistent experience or user language. So if you learn where certain configuration items are, or you learn how certain workflows work within an IBM product, we will look and act similarly. We're being very guarded about changes to this user experience because we tend to like our user experience and think it's valuable. But we are trying to come a little bit more in line with maybe where some of the button placement goes within IBM tools so that there's a consistent experience from product to product. Additionally, by doing this, we're actually using a set of libraries built by IBM internally, which allows us to move away from our own SevOne built libraries. And this actually gives us increased developer velocity, which means we can do more with the same amount of resourcing. So this means we'll have more features delivered to customers faster because we're using and we're no longer maintaining security patches and adding enhancements to our own libraries. We're actually using what's already being built and maintained by another team at IBM, which is great. And then additionally, probably the biggest reason for this push is the library that we're using, which is called Carbon, is built with accessibility in mind. So this actually means as we migrate to using those buttons and tooltips and et cetera, it's a lot easier for us to be built with accessibility in mind as well. So I'll show you in a moment the look and the feel, which is great, but part of it is that we are changing some of the colors and spacing and et cetera because accessibility is a higher priority now. Being part of IBM, which is great, which means users that are colorblind or et cetera will be able to see more vibrant information on their screen, which is nice, especially for those who are in government and who have that hard requirement. So what this means is here's the product as it stands in 7.1. And it should be familiar. This is our infamous network performance report. And it changed over to this. So as you notice, not a huge change. And so, part of that is because, like I said, we're guarding the changes and we're trying to be smart about them. But additionally, the biggest change is probably around the colors. So we've maintained the alert colors because that has been part of the product for well over a decade. And we want to make sure that those who are used to a particular red or yellow or green are used to that and know that that green, pardon me, that green means good or that red means really, really bad. And we don't want to change those colors. But for everything else, for the charts, the colors have been changed to be far more friendly to colorblind users. So now you can really distinguish very quickly at a glance. And while it was jarring to us, I think the change actually grew in all of us as we realized that it actually is easier on the eyes to be able to look at a very data-rich report and be able to actually distinguish what is what based on the higher fidelity of colors. Which is really nice. Additionally, it helps us have a little bit more of a potent dark theme and a little bit more potent light theme as well. So we've actually impacted both themes. And as you'll see in future versions, 8, 8.1, etc., we'll still be tweaking that UI. So the other major feature was around reports scheduling. So the reason we started looking at report scheduling is one of the promises of the new UI of what we call data insight was reusability. So anyone who's been a legacy customer for a while and was using the legacy UI knew that we ended up running into report bloat, that in a large environment with tons of users and all the users building their own reports, that you would get tens, dozens, hundreds, even thousands of reports, and then it became unwieldy to find what you're looking for admins to manage them. It just became an explosive problem. So when we built Data Insight, one of the promises that we'd made is reusability. So hey, if you have a report that shows you everything about a particular site, I want to look at Chicago, and then I want to look at New York, and then I want to look at Miami, I want to look at London. The report structure might be the same, but the data is different. So that's why we implemented the variable system so that you could go in and say, I'm looking at a site report and I want to quickly just look at Chicago. I want to quickly look at London and be able to just do that from a quick UI change, one button click, and boom, you've got a whole new report, even though the structure is the same. A lot of our users love that and then wanted to send an automated copy PDF of that report to users on a regular basis through scheduling. Well, scheduling did not allow you to do that. So if you wanted to have a site report that went to your Chicago users every Monday, and then you wanted a same site report that went to your London users every Friday, you had to have 2 separate reports. So we kind of broke that promise. It took us a while, but we were finally fulfilling that promise with report scheduling. So what we're doing is allowing you to build a scheduled report based on the variables that are in the report. So I can go into my site report for Chicago, choose Chicago from my variable system, say, hey, I want to send, when I choose Chicago for the device group, put that into the schedule, choose the Chicago team, basically type in, add the email addresses of everyone for Chicago that I want to send this to, and then pick Monday at 9 a.m. And then additionally go back in, create another schedule for London, choose London as the device group, choose the London recipients, choose Friday at 9 a.m., and then hit save. And then what ends up happening is that single report has multiple schedules. And this allows you to unify that reusability factor, because now the schedules themselves care about what the variables are. And so the scheduling now works with any of our variables in the variable system. So if you have a report that's using object groups or indicator or flow view, it's all available within the report scheduler. And as you save those schedules, it will care about, as you use those variables, the schedule, when it runs, will actually pull those variables out, run the report with those variables, generate the PDF, and then send that out. So this becomes very powerful because you actually get to reuse the same report for multiple schedules. And so we see this as being taking report scheduling to the next level, because we do know that a lot of customers do ship out PDFs on a regular basis using our report scheduling. And then the next feature that we have is alert analysis. So this is really powerful under do more with the data. So what this means is today, anywhere you are within Data Insight, if you see an alert, so basically if you're in a report and you see an alert, you can double click that alert and a slide out will come out on the right of the product. And it is our alert analysis view that will give you a ton of information about that alert. So this is really nice because rather than having to context switch out into like a different report in order to see what's going on with a particular alert, you can just double click really quickly and see that analysis sort of in place. So this is nice because you can actually see a quick analysis of what's going on by seeing the underlying device that's being impacted by that alert with additional information on top of it. So this allows you to be able to see, gives you more context without having to build your own workflows in order to do that. So it's basically us having an opinionated way to help you find root cause analysis faster by being able to interact with information that's on the report. We already have it. We're just displaying it in a faster, easier way, so you don't have to go digging yourself. So I went through that all very quickly, faster than I thought. So we have plenty of time for questions. So I don't know, Matt, if anything came up that you wanted to dive into detail on from the questions that were coming through.
Yeah, all the questions are answered. There was a question about topology. I don't know if we could go back to that slide. Maybe we could just expand on what technologies are available, or make it clear that SevOne automatically discovers topology and it uses various data sources to do so, right? So this doesn't have to be set up by you, the user. I think that's an important designation, right? You don't have to say that this device is connected to that device, et cetera. These details are all discovered by SevOne. Typically, we will inspect the routing tables on the devices, and that usually informs us of the topology. So if you have a specific routing technology that you use, we probably support it as far as developing this topology. So yeah, I just wanted to expand on that because that was one of the big questions we had. If there are any other questions, please feel free to submit them in. I'm not sure if anybody can come off mute to ask verbal questions. I don't think that's available here. But I see a lot of questions about downloading the slides. I believe they're going to be available, so don't worry about that.
Yeah, looks like everyone's interested in the slides. Yeah, we will make them available.
Yeah. Okay, we just got a question about the upgrade. Is upgrade supported from 6.8 to 7.2? Yes, it is. And I believe it should be a very simple single-step upgrade. Is that right, Rob? I don't know of any kind of stepping that you have to do in between those versions.
Yeah, the NMS, the backend, I would be uncertain about, but I don't think that there's a reason why you can't go through straight from one to the other.
I know I've updated several of my internal systems through that similar path, and I've never run into an issue, and it's been very quick. In my small environments, it's like the upgrade process maybe takes 5 minutes, maybe. Yeah, it's extremely fast and painless. Yeah.
So on topology, can DI filter by geography? So the answer to that today is no. We would suggest that the way to achieve that would be to build out by device group. And so basically group by devices under a particular geography, and then you would be able to interact with them that way. One of the things I did not mention about the topology improvements, so thank you for reminding me, is that the topology actually has a geographic mode, much like our live map functionality. So I know my cursor doesn't show up on the webinar, but in the upper left-hand corner of the screenshot, you can see that there's a canvas mode and a map mode. If you click the map mode, it'll actually place, assuming that you have latitude and longitude associated for your devices in metadata, you'll actually be able to place those topology. The devices will actually show up where they exist in the real world. So this allows you to build dynamic actual geographic maps so long as you have latitude and longitude associated with your devices. When you go to that view, they'll be placed. So all of your devices in Chicago will show up in Chicago. All the devices in London will show up in London. And if there are connections between them based on the number of hops, we'll build the lines between them showing that connection. So I know that doesn't answer your question in terms of filtering by geography, but you can actually see them on a physical map, or I guess on an actual geographic map as well. And I should have mentioned that earlier. So thank you for reminding me of that.
Yeah, I guess it's also worthwhile to note that if you do segment your devices by location by using device groups, you can then use a report variable to change the geography you're looking at. I believe we have a filter in topology for device groups.
Yes.
So that filter can then, you can say like, device group, like the devices I want to show in this topology have to be part of the Chicago device group or the Boston device group or whatever. So that is possible as well. We probably look to expand upon that though going forward with some metadata improvements that we've got coming in the pipeline. I see a question about integration with other tools such as ServiceNow or Cisco Meraki. Generally, for specifically on the ServiceNow front, what we typically will recommend there is sort of an add-on product called RIA in the IBM world, which allows you to quickly and easily set up automation, right? So you can do things like, without via this sort of no-code solution, you can set up automations that say when a ServiceNow or when a SevOne alert is triggered, create a requisite ServiceNow incident, automatically, or the reverse, right? If there's a ServiceNow incident created, create a SevOne event, to display that in SevOne. So those sorts of things are possible. If you have ideas, please reach out to your sales engineer to talk about them, because usually they are accomplishable through something like RIA. There's another question about out-of-the-box reports for the mapping option. I think that's something that we're looking to improve upon as well. There's challenges there as far as like what metadata is available just by default, when you start monitoring things. But we are looking to make improvements to how we can showcase maps in a more out-of-the-box fashion. So stay tuned for the updates in the future there.
Matt, there's a question about the device summary. Since I know that was your baby, I was curious.
Yeah, so it looks like there's a request to maybe allow for a little bit more customization of the view. Yeah, so I suppose like right now, we take an opinionated view in the device summary. When we show the interface table, we'll break down the in and out octets. And it looks like this request is asking us, can we just show basically a percentage utilization for each, which, yeah, should be coming soon, actually. I think this is an update that may make its way into the 8.0 release of SevOne. But essentially, you'll be able to view the in and out utilization instead of the raw utilization of this many bytes has traversed the interface. It will be a percentage of the rate. So again, stay tuned for that. That should be coming soon.
So in the topology widget, is there a way to select either uplinks or downlinks or both? Today, no, that's not possible. However, that would not be, I think, that difficult to implement. So that is something I can take back to engineering and take a look at. But today, the only way to determine what you can see in terms of links for topology is either you manually tag them and turn them off, or you can filter by technology type or whether they're physical, logical, or session. So there's no way to determine uplink versus downlink. Not today, but that is actually a good request that I hadn't heard before, but we can definitely take that back as an idea.
Very interesting question about internet intelligence. Something akin to 1,000 eyes. This is, I feel like I'm going to say this a lot, but stay tuned for the future. There will likely be a webinar in the coming months, very focused on just this topic. So I can't say a lot right now, but please be on the lookout for our webinar announcements and sign up when you see it. But there is something coming in the pipeline that is 100% relevant. Service now. Second, do some housekeeping here. Okay, so elaboration on the integration with ServiceNow. So when we talk about RIA, RIA is a low-code, no-code platform that allows you to essentially, produce automations in a visual manner. And a lot of the building blocks of those that visual automation builder is kind of provided for you out of the box, right? So I believe RIA will already ship with certain inputs and outputs to and from ServiceNow, for these automations. So this allows you to do, sort of, is it the word I'm looking for? Not complex, but let's say non-trivial things. Like you could create workflows that can take a ServiceNow incident and create a SevOne alert, or when a SevOne alert fires, you can create a ServiceNow incident and have the details sort of kind of automatically populate between the two. But this is the thing to stress here is that this is enabled because RIA is a very flexible platform, but just by nature of being an automation platform, right? So when, your imagination drives the capabilities. The topology widget, can you quickly view bandwidth utilization for a given link? I guess the answer is sort of, right? I don't know off the top of my head. I believe we have this feature. And it looks like, no, maybe not. We have a feature called chaining in our reporting framework, right? That allows you to take the details in a certain widget and chain them to another widget, which effectively will pivot, the data that you're looking at. Perhaps there's an opportunity here to do that with topology to what we call performance metrics widget, which is essentially our time series widget that shows time series data. I don't believe in the topology widget today that we have any way to overlay any performance data onto topology view. That's a good suggestion though, and I think we could sort of explore that for improvements in the near future. So yeah, I think there's a couple different ways we can approach that.
So the answer is no for topology. However, as part, I'm pretty sure, as part of 8.0 that will be coming out in a month or so, for the live map functionality, where you can actually associate metrics to nodes and links, you would be able to actually assign bandwidth utilization to a particular link. And then we do, as part of 8.0, we'll have the ability to show a label that gives you what that utilization is. So in 8.0, you would be able to not only color or size the link based on that utilization, you would actually be able to see, hey, this particular link is at 70% utilization, or if you want to do the raw bits or bytes, you can do that as well. Obviously, most people use percentage, so you'll actually be able to physically see that on the map. But that'll be live maps to start, and then we would have to have a roadmap discussion internally as to when we want to bring that over into the topology widget as well. But that feature is going to be there for our mapping live maps. I'm pretty sure it's going to be 8.0. To go over can you discover the relationship in the topology view and hide the underlay, which is physical? Yes, in the legend in the bottom left-hand corner. Well, so the topology widget itself has a set of filters. So you can go in and choose to filter off any physical connections. And so then when the topology is being built, even dynamically, it will never show those physical connections and show you logical and session connections only. So you can do that there, or as part of interacting with the widget itself, you can click the legend and turn off physical connections or whatever is being displayed in the legend. So you'll have that interactivity where you can temporarily turn them off and then turn them back on.
Okay, that's great. There's a question about creating alerts if an AP has been associated with an incorrect WLC. So the answer there is sort of like another "it depends" sort of response, right? In SevOne, you can create a threshold which can create an alert based on any pollable metric that we have. So if you're polling a value that attributes an AP to a WLC, then you can effectively threshold for something that's abnormal there. But it all depends on like what polling capabilities are offered by the vendor, of the Wi-Fi vendor. So that's possible. If you'd like, send us a request and we can talk about that offline because it's going to be pretty specific to your implementation. But generally, I think we should be able to accomplish something there. Baseline's a good question. So kind of like one of the core pillars of SevOne is this promise that we will compute baselines for every single thing that we collect on the platform, right? So every indicator that we monitor, every indicator that we collect will get automatically baselined, and you will be able to set up threshold conditions based on aberrations to that baseline. So if something goes wildly out of spec, you can be alerted on it, right? So an example here, if you are measuring latency between anything using a SevOne platform, you can have a policy that will alert you, if it's a standard deviation above or 2 standard deviations above, whatever your tolerance is there, you can achieve that using the baselines. So there's a question about tools for wireless network support. So we offer a lot of built-in solutions to monitor Wi-Fi solutions from a variety of vendors. Off the top of let me see if I can pull something up on the side here to get the actual list. I don't know, Rob, do you know offhand which vendors we support?
No, there's a lot of them. So
yeah. Chances are, if they're a player in that market, we will support it, right? We have some purpose-built widgets to help visualize those things. Sadly, I don't think we have any slides for them, but we do have things like station analyzers that can show when Wi-Fi clients are experiencing problems, right? Like it gives you this nice graphical radar essentially, and when the clients are very far from the center of the radar, it's kind of indicating that they're having a bad experience. This would be a great one if you want to reach out to us. We can give you something a little bit more focused if you're interested on that. Looks like we're running up against time and the questions are slowing down. So we'll give it a few more moments here.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. It was amazing to be able to answer all your questions and present all of the great features in the last several releases. We really encourage everyone who's already a customer to upgrade. We are always encouraging you guys to get the latest and greatest of everything we're building. And for those of you who aren't customers, we please take a look at us and consider taking a test drive for all of these awesome features. And thank you, Matt, for being here to help answer questions and make sure I didn't miss anything. And thank you, everyone, for attending.
Thanks, Rob.